Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll give everyone about 30 seconds or so to hop in, and then we've got a great program lined up for you all today, so we'll go ahead and dive in. If you're here to explore how the Gies College of Business at the University of Illinois has leveraged stackable credentials and digital badging to transform business education, then you are absolutely in the right place. We're just waiting for a couple more of our colleagues to join us. As folks are hopping on, please do introduce yourself in the chat. We love to see where everyone's joining us from today. Thank you, thank you. I see lots of people joining in. Welcome. My name is Laura. For those of you just joining, I'm thrilled to welcome you all, as well as our two wonderful speakers here. We've got Amanda Brittner. She's the Senior Director of Content and Educational Portfolio Strategy at the University of Illinois Gies College of Business. I'm also joined by a credible zone Dan Thexton. He's our SVP of Customer Success. And we're so thrilled that all of you has joined us here today. If you have just joined, we ask that you share where you're joining us from in the chat. If we just advance one slide, we'll go ahead and cover some quick housekeeping notes so we can get to the good stuff ASAP. Before we begin, we have a couple of housekeeping notes for you. We will have some time to address questions that come up today. We invite you to share those using the Q&A feature in Zoom. It's just at the bottom of your screen. So submit those questions throughout the presentation whenever you think of them, and we'll tackle them together as many as time permits before we break together at the 45-minute mark. And this session, for those of you who are interested in sharing this or rewatching in the future, will be recorded, and you'll all receive a link to view the session on demand via email. With that, thanks again for joining us. I'll turn it over to you, Dan.
Great. Thank you so much, Laura. And welcome, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. No matter where you are in your adoption of digital credentials, I'm confident that you're going to find value in our conversation with Amanda today. I've had the pleasure of working with her team directly in recent years, and I've continued to be impressed by how forward-thinking and intentional they've been with their credentialing program. So I think it's best, Amanda, if we start by setting the stage a bit. University of Illinois Gies College of Business has earned global recognition for its innovative and student-centric approach to academic programming. Now, before we dive into how Gies built this innovative credentialing model, which we're going to spend a lot of time on, Amanda, can you give us a high-level overview of the Gies program and its current state?
Yeah, thanks, Dan, and thanks everybody for joining us today, and for those who watch in the recording as well. It's a pleasure to be here and to represent the Gies College of Business and the University of Illinois. So just a little backstory on kind of what we have and high-level overview as Dan requested. So at Gies, we've built a portfolio of fully online, flexible, and stackable graduate business programs, including a flagship online Master's of Business Administration, which we call our iMBA, as well as an online Master's in Accounting and a Master's in Management program. As we've built these programs, our focus has always been on democratizing business education by making it accessible and modular, which allows our learners to start small, to earn credentials, and to stack them into degrees and certificates over time. What we recognize is that a learner may need a microcredential today, a certificate next year, and a degree at some point down the road, and our model supports that journey. This model that we've developed, it really supports our efforts towards lifelong learning, giving professionals the ability to upskill and signal their expertise incrementally, rather than their only option being to commit to a longer path from day one. So that's a little bit about what we've built. Specifically in the microcredential space, we've issued 42,000 digital credentials. Some of these data points are on this slide. Across various programs, we've achieved an 80% credential engagement rate, which includes sharing on social media, adding to email signatures, et cetera. 78% credential LinkedIn share rate. And we also see an incredible number of our learners earning multiple credentials over time. So as you see, 62% of our learners earn multiple credentials as they are on their path to a larger credential, maybe a degree program. So at this point in time, we're also continuing to expand our digital credentialing strategies beyond graduate business learners to include undergraduates and to continue to build on what we've built in the professional education space.
Yeah, I love it. To start, that's an incredible level of scale, 42,000 credentials issued. And I think we're going to spend a lot of time on the metrics today and what went into getting to them. But the impact you're making, Amanda, and your team is making is so impressive. With that said, we both know it didn't happen overnight. So I think a good starting point would be to rewind and let's talk about how this all started. Um,
Yeah.
so take us back to the early days, Amanda. What led Gies to rethink the traditional credentialing model?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Stan. And thanks for pointing out that this is not an individual effort. There's an incredible team of people behind this work, many of whom are here on the webinar who might watch it in recording. So really appreciate that incredible teamwork that goes into this. And some of the things I'm going to talk about are the reflection of our larger group, not myself. So if we look back to where we started about 10 years ago, Gies recognized an opportunity to really rethink graduate business education in particular. And as we thought through that, we realized an opportunity to leverage the online modality and really kind of double down on our mission as a land-grant institution. We set out to democratize access to high quality graduate business education by making it modular, flexible, and stackable, as you can see in the graphic that Dan's sharing. What we recognize is that learning happens in stages. Learners don't always start their journey knowing exactly where they want to go. And so what we built is a model where someone can take a course, earn a credential, and later apply that towards the degree when their timing is right. We recognize again that the learning one has demand for today, and the credential they have demand and or time for in the future can be connected. So that path might not, and in fact, that path may not be known to the learner at the very beginning. And so that's why we believe modular education is so critical and really is the foundation of what we set out to build and have successfully built over the last 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a fantastic way to frame it. From working with you all directly, it's been clear for us here at Incredible to see you've been really ahead of the curve in thinking about flexible and lifelong learning as well. But I would imagine that making that vision a reality wasn't necessarily simple. So at Incredible, we've been in the digital credentialing space since the start of it about 12 years ago. Over that time, we've been really excited to see that learner and market demand has increased exponentially. Our state of credentialing report, which we've shared a few data points from it here on the slide today, it illustrated just that growth in demand. An overwhelming 96% of those who earned a digital credential consider it valuable for their career, and 78% believe it increases their chances of getting a job offer. So to talk about Gies specifically here, Amanda, at what point did digital credentials come into the picture with your vision?
Yeah, absolutely. They've always been kind of part of the vision, but realizing it was a bit of a journey. We're partnered with Coursera in open content for our degree programs. And so that organization has helped us to think about digital credentialing from the beginning. We award digital credentials for some of our open content in partnership with Coursera, but at Gies, specifically within the University of Illinois, the startup ramp was a little bit longer there. And so, we realized that there was an opportunity. We saw two opportunities to be specific. First was that for those learners taking non-credit courses, we wanted to provide them with recognition for their learning, recognizing that those, in the space of higher education, we talk about transcripted credit. When someone's taking a non-credit course, it's not transcripted. It's not, at our university in particular, it's not part of the learner's registrar record, their official transcript. And so we see an opportunity to recognize those learners. Second, we recognize that for learners working towards a degree, having credentials along the way creates value. And this is really where, the significant number of awards that we've offered and the engagement is, a lot of it's coming from that population. We have over 6,000 students in our graduate online business pipeline pursuing some sort of learning at various steps in the path. And we recognize that allowing those individuals to signal progress to employers before completing the full degree program is really valuable. Not to mention, these are generally adult learners where it takes time and may require short pauses along the way, longer breaks, or even the need to off-ramp from a larger credential. And so again, being able to use digital credentials to help learners signal to the market and demonstrate what they've gained on path to a larger credential is really where we saw a tremendous amount of opportunity.
Yeah, so absolutely. So you identified the opportunity, and then and you know, you foresaw that digital credentials were going to be a part of this strategy.
Yeah.
Take us to the next step. How did you go about selecting the right partner for these initiatives?
Yeah, it's just definitely a little bit of a journey and started in some unique spaces. So we knew we needed a platform, right? And we knew that that was part of the journey here, was finding a platform that would feel like an extension of our institution, not just not another third-party tool. We wanted something that could integrate with our existing systems because we had already built a really strong infrastructure for online learning, and we didn't want to add unnecessary administrative burden, especially at the scale we were operating at. We weren't just looking for a credentialing tool. We were really looking for a partner that could support our scale, as I mentioned, and enhance our learner experience and really integrate seamlessly with what we were doing up to that point.
That's great. And I think it makes total sense. So how did Gies ultimately land on Incredible?
Yeah, it's an interesting kind of background. So, we had first been introduced to Incredible through continuing and professional education space that we were working in at the time, where Incredible was a tool that integrated with the LMS that we were using for some of our non-credit courses. And so that's where we first saw it in action. Right away, we noticed how easy it was to use and how well it worked at scale. And it got us thinking if it would also be, could it be the right solution for our learners pursuing paths towards graduate business education and a larger digital credentialing strategy. So in that process, we did evaluate a handful of other credentialing platforms, and a couple of things that stood out to us about Incredible and continue to really were the automation and scalability. So as I mentioned, we operate at a pretty large scale of learner population, and the automation is a game changer for us with that population of more than 6,000 online learners. Issuing credentials could be really cumbersome if there were a tremendous amount of manual effort involved, and Incredible has been a great partner in making that seamless. Additionally, I talked earlier about the need for us to have a credentialing partner that felt like an extension of the Gies College of Business, not a third party, not a place where we were sending learners and then losing them or not having control over their engagement with us, really thinking about that learner experience. And so with the white labeling and branding that we have access to with Incredible, we can make the credentials feel like they are ours, right? Not like, because they are ours, right? Yep. Not just a badge from an external provider. And that was really important. Lastly, and this actually came through the work we did with Thinkific, we saw that the platform worked well with our current systems, right? We could really integrate and auto-generate, auto-award credentials, digital micro-credentials when it was appropriate. And for us, again, at scale, thinking about self-paced content or content that's reaching a number of learners, to be able to really recognize the learner as soon as they complete something, not to wait for some back-end process to get something through is really important to us. And so we're really grateful for those things that, again, have made Incredible stand out to us.
Yeah, so I love that you called out white labeling, and this slide here actually demonstrates some examples of credentials that are out in the wild, so to speak,
Yeah.
From Gies. And it's something we hear about a lot as far as white labeling is concerned. It's not just about issuing a credential, it's about ensuring it aligns with the institution's brand and credibility. So for those that partner with Incredible or have spoken with us previously, you know that we have a philosophical belief that your institution's brand should be front and center throughout your learner's experience. And we're more so just happy to be the engine behind the scenes that helps this piece of it run. And it's clear, Amanda, that your students and your learners have such an affinity with the University of Illinois brand. So how important was that to your team?
Yeah, it's really important, Dan. It's again, these are credentials that Gies has created, learning that Gies has provided. We believe that these digital microcredentials create incredible value for our learners in the market. And we want that value to reflect our brand and who we are as an institution, and ensure that our learners recognize that in these digital credentials. So again, Accredible just allows us to extend our work, and it enables us to do what we do better while keeping the credentials ours, while supporting us in building out those credentials and helping us understand industry best practices and continuously do what we're doing in a better way. And so that's been incredible. And again, on the white labeling piece, it's something we've adopted within the last maybe like 12 to 18 months, probably have the timeline a little off there. But it has been, I think really valuable in terms of even internal communication for people to see the white labeling and the branding that we have there. I think within an institution, it can be hard to think about that external influence, right? And what that's going to mean for how we manage our brand, how we communicate. And so it's been a really great experience and really important to us.
Yeah, I think that's it's such a powerful perspective, and it really speaks to how institutions like Gies can use digital credentials to enhance their brand and their learner experience rather than just treating them like a transactional process.
Yeah.
So now that we understand how Accredible became a part of your credentialing strategy, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about how you actually implemented and scaled the program. I think here at Accredible, we know from experience that scaling a program like this requires major stakeholder buy-in. So I guess, Amanda, how did you get faculty and leadership on board? And any early challenges you can highlight?
Yeah, sure thing. So I mentioned the continuing and professional education space where we kind of started this. That was very small, but I was actually working in that space with a faculty colleague of mine at the time, and we referred to the work we were doing as like, garage startup work within our college. And so we had a lot of flexibility to explore and try things on a actually very small scale at the time, that enabled us to learn and understand. And it was that learning and understanding that allowed us to bring the opportunity to a bigger stage within our college. And that bigger stage was in a pretty unique position. We were in the midst of disrupting graduate business education, taking our MBA program fully online, really committing to scale, to committing to delivering online graduate business education in a new and different way, and to serving learners at scale. And so because of that unique position, because we were in this spot of really innovating and disrupting and thinking differently, our leadership was really willing to think differently, right? The reason we were successful in bringing and building out our portfolio of online graduate business education is because we had a leadership and faculty who were really enthusiastic about the opportunity to think differently. And so when it came to bringing digital credentials into that space, there was an openness to being disruptive and taking some risks and thinking differently, controlled risks, but still some risks. And so what we were able to do was start small, experiment, and scale up. One of the biggest challenges that we faced in that process was how to go from not having awarded digital credentials to starting to award digital credentials. So I don't remember the exact numbers of where we were at the time, but we had hundreds of learners online, some of which who had already maybe completed degree programs or coursework in our online portfolio. And there was this question of, how do you start offering something to a population without offering it to everyone? Do we award them retroactively was one of the questions we were trying to answer. And how do we define, what qualifies, what period of time qualifies? So ultimately, we made the decision that when you're disrupting and innovating, sometimes you have to say, like, it was like this until now, and now it's different. And so we started in a specific academic year and moved forward. Per usual, I think we worried about the impact more than we thought we were more concerned about the impact it was going to have, or the negative implications of the timing we chose, than it amounted to be. But still, it was a space where we really had to give it some thought, and we did have to answer hard questions from learners about, well, why can't I go back and be awarded this credential? But we developed language and had leadership buy-in to how we were going to approach it, and that made overcoming that challenge possible for us.
Yeah, it sounds like early communication was key, and you planted a lot of seeds and you allowed them to grow into more. So creating the program is just one piece of this puzzle. We get a lot of excitement, and really the real opportunity lies with ensuring learners actually use value and then share and engage with their credentials, which we're going to talk about over the course of the next few minutes. We always say that while issuing the credential digitally is such an important step, and that is a huge win in itself, it's arguably more important what the earner does with it. So how they engage with their credential after receiving it. So Amanda, how did Gies approach the rollout of digital credentials to ensure the learners understood their value and that subsequently they actively engaged with them from there?
Yeah, it's a great question, Dan, and I agree, right? Issuing the credential isn't enough. If you have credentials out there and they're not creating value, frankly, maybe you shouldn't even be awarding them. Or is it worth the investment of the time that you're putting into it? This is a place where I feel like we've really evolved over the last number of years that we've been doing this, and thanks to a lot of incredible work in the background from a number of people, and very specific people on our team. So we wouldn't be where we are without the investment of time and energy in this. We knew that we needed to figure out how to make sure learners understood what they were receiving and why it was available, and how to use it. Many of the learners who are earning these digital credentials from Gies, especially in the online graduate business education space, are professional learners, average age of 35, many looking for career growth and career progression. So while they may be an audience who isn't familiar as well with the digital credentialing space, we knew that if positioned well, we could really help them understand the value of how to use these digital credentials to create value in the marketplace, whether that was within their own organization, whether it was, to feel good about the progress they were making towards the degree, pursuing a fully online MBA program, over the course of a couple of years. Many of these students in the middle of COVID, it was a hard road, right? So even just to be able to celebrate their own successes along the way, not to mention share those with the market and their peers, was something the audience was ripe for, right? So we needed to help educate them, but they were maybe an easy target, I guess is what I'll say. So what we've done is, been really intentional about timing and communication. We worked hard to give context for the awards that would be created. We work hard to encourage learners to engage with these credentials that we award. We don't rely solely on the messaging that comes from Accredible when a credential is awarded. That's really important, and we have a lot of ability to customize that messaging. We've done incredible work there. But we also communicate with learners via other channels that we have.
Yeah.
Whether that's through newsletters that we send, academic advisors, peers, et cetera. And so it's those kind of additional channels that we're using that we think really help us to get learners to understand you're going to receive this digital credential, and here are some things you can do with it, so that it doesn't just get lost in the barrage of emails and other things that are coming into us on a daily basis.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. Rather than just issuing the credentials and crossing your fingers for engagement, you made sure your learners knew in advance that they were going to receive them. What other ways did you reinforce the value, Amanda?
Yeah, great question. And I talked about the incredible back end work that we've done here. So this is a nod to that as well. A key part of our approach is in ensuring that each of our credentials has enough data attached to it to stand on its own. So, this isn't a paper copy of a credential that you put in your drawer. It's a digital credential that has metadata behind it, and can really communicate with individuals, the
Mhm.
market, et cetera, about what has been achieved or what the learner has by receiving this credential. It shows them, for example, when a learner or someone else, right, opens a credential, the person viewing the credential can see exactly what it means. They can see what coursework the individual completed, what skills they demonstrated, and how it connects to broader learning and the impacts that they can have as a result. Dan's showing an example. You probably can't read all of what's on there. Maybe if your screen's big enough, your vision's better than mine, you can. But there's an incredible amount of information here that really tells both the learner what they gained prior to awarding that digital credential, and it can be viewed by others, right? So if this is on a LinkedIn profile, on a resume, an employer can click into it and see a little bit more about what the learner really gained to earn this credential. Yeah, that's a little bit about how we went about it. I think the other thing is here, like, you know, we're continuously improving in this space. I'm going to talk about this as a little bit of a takeaway as well, but we're always looking for ways to do this better, right? To drive engagement, to better signal what the credential means, to ensure that it creates value in the market. And so it's kind of like a never ending, you know, it's not really a set it and forget it, right? We need to keep coming back to this and ensuring that we are doing our best and serving our learners in the best way through what they have on the back end related to the metadata.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've continued to iterate and evolve. And it's clear the metadata and the time you spent to make sure that the skills, the earning criteria of the credentials are so clear, paved the way for the learners to engage with them like they are. So let's spend a minute or so and just talk about more of that engagement, because I think you have a great story to tell on that specifically too. Our teams worked closely together to increase credential engagement and sharing, increasing it by more than 48% since 2022. And you talked about it before, you're seeing nearly an 80% LinkedIn share rate, which, simplifying it, means 80% of your learners who receive a credential are either adding it to their LinkedIn profile or sharing it into their feed. So they're very proud of the recognition that they're receiving, and they want to get it into their peer networks, which of course is attracting others to look into these programs as well. So that improvement, you know, that took some time and some work. Can you share a bit about how you've worked on improving those metrics over that time?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is really incredible being up to 80% engagement now, over 54% in 2022 is an incredible pride point. And there are a number of people who deserve a lot of credit for that. And so I'm really grateful to the work that's gone into that. We have made an incredible investment and seen engagement increase significantly over time. Part of that, I think, is time, right? I do think time plays a factor, right? This was brand new. Our learners were beginning to understand we were communicating with our learners. And so as we were continuing to communicate, as we were continuing to demonstrate the value of the credential, you know, there's organic growth and increase that happened. I think also, you know, we have a really engaged and unique group of learners who responded well to the visibility of being able to demonstrate and showcase their progress. And so they were receptive to the messages we were sending them, right? It resonated with them. So that's been really incredible. I think we've really improved our messaging strategy. We have really improved our broad knowledge and understanding of the digital credential space within our college. We've come a really long way, and we've just, you know, continued to double down on the value that this creates, and continue to communicate with our learners about the value of engagement. We also engage with our learners when they share their credentials, right? So we are active with our students to be able to engage with them when they share. the credential that they've earned. We're communicating with them when the credentials are awarded so they know they're coming. And again, I think all of those efforts really drive up our engagement rates.
Yeah, it's clear to see. I mean, you're proud, as a learner, you're proud to put it and share it with your social network. But then when you see someone from Gies itself actually say like, great job, or engage with it directly like that, I mean, it's full circle. I think that really differentiates it and drives more engagement from there. So now that we've covered how learners engage with credentials, let's talk a little bit about what's next. As you look to the future, what is next for Gies?
Yeah, great question. Thanks, Dan. So, we've been continuously looking to expand our digital credentialing into the professional education space. We operate in the professional education space a little differently than some of our peers, typically doing professional education at scale and relying on our vast portfolio in the online space to deliver professional education. And so digital credentials are part of that strategy. In addition, we're really excited about bringing digital credentials into the undergraduate space and leveraging digital credentials as a way to increase access to undergraduate business education from Gies College of Business, and starting with doing so on our own campus, serving learners from outside of Gies, so undergraduate students pursuing bachelor's degrees from other colleges on our campus, but look forward to a time where we have the opportunity to scale that up and serve learners elsewhere. And so that's on the horizon, and we're really excited about what's coming there.
Yeah, absolutely. It is very exciting. So you've shared a lot of great insights about your journey today, Amanda. If you were to summarize it a bit, what would you consider to be the top 3 to 4 most important lessons you've learned throughout this process that you would share with others looking to implement or maybe iterate on a similar program?
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. Before I get to that, I want to just take one quick step back. And that is one other thing that we've seen happen on our campus is the adoption of Accredible across our university. And so another thing that we're supporting and working towards is a broader university adoption of Accredible. We're working closely with many colleges on our campus to think about Accredible as a tool they can use really to bring their digital credentialing strategy to life. And so that's been a really exciting place to be as well. And I think we're a little, it's an interesting way that we've approached it on our campus, right? That was a college first and really a very small scale at a college that scaled up and then has branched out to the rest of our university. There's an incredible amount of work happening in that space. And so that's exciting to be a part of and support as well. So in terms of 3 to 4 important lessons, yeah, definitely a couple. So starting small and iterating, I think, is really important. So, as I mentioned, we tested this first with non-credit learners and have scaled up from there. We've been open to, the fact that there's things to learn and things to understand, and that's been facilitated through iterating on our process, right? We didn't just start with one thing and say, we're sticking with that for forever. So that's one. The other is to have a governance framework. So I didn't get into this much earlier, but one of the things that we've built and again iterated on is a framework for credential categories, so that we have guidelines within our college about the award categories that we have for digital credentials. What that enables us to do is have conversations with those within our college who might want to award digital credentials. Those are relatively broad categories that we've created, but there's definitely a structure to it, right? And what at a very basic level, just as an example, we only award digital certificates for certain award categories. For other award categories, we use badges. And so what we think is, the opportunity there is to ensure that, one unit's not awarding a certificate for walking in the door, while another unit is coming to class, maybe, while another unit is awarding a certificate for 3 credit, a 3-course sequence that is assessed. And so really thinking that through and being willing to live within a governance framework, and then also back to iterate to adjust that framework as you need to, and to have that flexibility. So that's been part of one of the important lessons. The stakeholder buy-in is critical. I mean, I think everybody knows that, and that's been a big part for us. The learner experience and prioritizing that meta-rich data, helping learners showcase their skills effectively, really thinking, again, I think it's really thinking about the learner and how they're going to engage with these digital credentials, how we're going to encourage them to, how we're going to create value for them when they do engage with them, has really been, we think that's really important and will continue to be important for the future.
Yeah, I love that. I think those are all really good things to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Amanda, thank you so much. Laura, I'm going to hand it back to you. I know we've got a little bit of time left, so hopefully we can go through some audience Q&A.
Yes, absolutely. Keep them coming. This first question, Amanda, is for you. Do you have a pulse on how many credential earners end up enrolling in an academic degree program so far?
Yeah, that's great. So we award digital credentials to students both prior to enrolling in a degree program and on their path to a degree program. I don't have those exact statistics in front of me. We do see that learners are stacking through our portfolio, and so at varying degrees. It's a great question. It's something I can maybe share back to Dan and Laura as a data point to put in the follow-up email. We do see that, it's both a persistence motivator and a next credential motivator. I just don't have the numbers in front of me. Sorry, I can't share that.
No, that's great. It's great to know that that is definitely something that is that first step, and definitely a good selling point for prospective and current students. Moving on to another question about a recent note that you made, Amanda, is around the governance framework. So we also at Credible get a lot of questions about this. And so Dan, if you want to speak to this as well, we would love to hear your thoughts around determining what earns a certificate versus what might earn a badge or what might just be a component to that certificate.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we started with 3 credential or award categories. We've actually just recently expanded to 4 award categories, giving us an opportunity to just differentiate between credit and non-credit, which we obviously think is important. And it's just the signal we want to be able to send. And so for us, again, it was trying to build, and I say governance, that makes it sound really official. We did this within our college with support from our dean and associate dean, and buy-in from faculty and others that enabled us to build this out. But it was essentially, it just allows us to have a framework so that when someone or us comes and says, ooh, maybe we could do a digital credential for this thing, where does it fit? So our 4 digital credentialing or award categories are academic achievement. Those are for collections of credit-bearing learning opportunities, continuing and professional education, which is for those things that are non-credit. We have, and both of those categories come with badge and certificate. They are the learning that is pursued through those to achieve those credentials include assessments, right? So the learning is assessed in different ways, but always assessed in one way or another. The third category we have is participation. So this is for when somebody joins a webinar, they participate in an opportunity to learn that's not assessed. That is, just is a badge. And then we also have an engagement category. So for individuals who engage in and support our initiatives, we have some digital badging for that as well. So a lot more detail on what that looks like and how we've built it. We're actually having conversations at a university level about what this looks like and how we build something that works across our university as a whole. And so that conversation is evolving, but that's kind of where we've started at Gies and what we're building from. And again, it's really just kind of guardrails for us that help us have the conversations and not get stuck not get paralyzed into not being able to make decisions, which can happen, or two, creating kind of the wild, wild west where everybody's doing their own kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think from our perspective, even if you're starting small, it's good to think this through. And like you're doing, Amanda, you can always iterate on that in the future. From the Accredible side, we're format agnostic, we like to say, with the credentials we issue. So you can issue a badge, you can issue a certificate, or you can issue a badge and a certificate within one credential as well. We still feel like there's a place in the world for certificates, more high stakes, sort of capstone types of credentials. And to what Amanda said, it's really about what's going into the earning of that credential. And, it's your decision to make. We have a professional services team that works really closely with our clients if they do need that extra help. But yeah, I think it's just about thinking it through and then putting those guardrails in place, like you said, Amanda.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you both. What are some of your processes, Amanda, and then Dan, this is definitely something that's plugged into the Accredible experience for automatically awarding certificates at scale? Is that integrated with the LMS, or did your team create a separate process, Amanda?
Yeah, great questions. We have some of our digital credentials are awarded in integration with the LMS, meaning when a learner completes the learning experience, the digital credential is automatically awarded and comes to them. And then we also have some processes, again, this is in the case where the digital credential is awarded upon credit-bearing course completion, especially collection of credit-bearing courses. We use, our back-end data to ensure we have students have earned the right grade, that they have actually completed the entire sequence, and we upload that data to then automatically award the credential. So kind of two different models.
Yeah, and I think from the Accredible side, and Amanda talked about it early, but University of Illinois wanted to avoid more time being added and more manual tasks. So we want to automate everything as much as possible. We integrate with all of the major LMSs out there, Canvas, Blackboard, D2L, others as well. And we have very open APIs. So we like to say if you're housing this information somewhere and you have a trigger on what would constitute as us issuing a credential, we haven't found one that we couldn't met previously. So don't want to add any more work to anyone's plate. Let's find a way to automate it.
Absolutely. I think we have time for maybe just two more questions. So Dan, are you getting any demand, or Amanda, from your students even, for NFT credentials specifically?
So I think it's growing as that area continues to grow. People are starting to look at dipping their toes in. I can't say that it's exponential demand whatsoever, but we definitely have our eye on it. And if anyone's interested in speaking about it further, I know I'd be personally happy to speak about it. Amanda, I'm not sure if you're hearing anything on that side.
Yeah, it's come up a handful of times, mostly from some of my colleagues internally who are working in the disruption space in higher ed. And so we're kind of talking about that from a blockchain perspective, but we haven't gotten, not from students, I guess, is what I'll say. And it's not something we're pursuing at the moment.
Yeah, with Accredible, you can add the blockchain encryption on it.
Right.
With Ethereum. But we have bank level encryption as like a standard, and that's an extra level that you can secure for more immutable records. So happy to chat NFTs further though.
Great. All right, last question for you both. So Amanda, has your team worked with employers to help them seek out or find value in the credentials that your learners are earning?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have we've not done a tremendous amount of that to this point. Part of what we have is again the scale of the credentials being awarded, and many of those digital awards are for coursework on path or on option to graduate certificate and or degree. And so where we focus is more related to the larger, more recognized credentials, I guess is what I'll say. But we're starting to have more of those conversations in the undergraduate space as we pursue digital credentials to expand access to undergraduate education on our campus. So working closely with our Office of Career and Professional Development, and also with others across campus about how to tap into or serve the needs of students across campus for business skills so that they can be attractive to their employers. And of course, that conversation includes talking to prospective employers and understanding what needs they have. Yeah, and then I guess one other thing we do that maybe relates is really looking closely at the labor market data. So while it's not specifically interactions with individual organizations, individual employers, we do tap into labor market data pretty significantly when creating the metadata for our credentials to ensure that the data that's present on the back end of the credential resonates with labor market needs. And is kind of shaped in that way. And so that's a way that we're maybe serving the employer needs without necessarily bringing the employer directly into the conversation.
Yeah, that's a super actionable takeaway to close out on. So thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Dan. And thanks to all of everyone who was able to join us today. We are wrapping up now, but before we leave, for those of you who will be attending UPSIA's annual conference at the end of this month in Denver, Colorado in the US, we will be there. So please do stop by, visit the folks from Accreditable and the big team from the University of Illinois while you're on site, because we'd love to continue today's conversation in person. And I also want to draw your attention to the chat and to the screen here, where I'm about to share a link to a fabulous set of resources for all of you. They are our credential growth playbooks. They are individual guides for each of the industries listed on the screen. And all of the takeaways in those guides comes from data collected in our 2024 State of Credentialing survey that Dan had previewed earlier. So we encourage you to check those out, get a good understanding of what other top digital credentialing programs like Gies are doing differently, and then how organizations like yours can adapt to changing learner needs and preferences. Thank you again to Amanda. Thank you again to Dan and to all of you for sharing your time, your expertise with us today. Enjoy the rest of your week.